a low gravity makeout session, a Klingon serenade, and is Odo going to buy a piece of quark? Hey, everybody, and welcome to the Seventh Rule with Cirroc Lofton. My name is Ryan T. Husk, and today we are doing a review of Deep Space Nine's Season 2, Episode 6, Melora, directed by Weinrich Colby. How you doing, Cirroc?
Doing good.
Awesome.
Melora.
Also want to do a quick shout out to our associate producers, Imo Radka, Rex A. Wood, Dennis Koch, and Homer Frizzell.
Homer, Rex.
We know and love him and them.
Yeah. Yes.
So, yeah, let's talk about this episode. It was definitely an interesting one. It was very Star Trek. What do you think about it?
Yeah, it was very Star Trek. I mean, it was pretty self-explanatory in a lot of ways. You know, the issues that they talked about, they really didn't, really need to go too deep into it. They talked about the, it was all about this handicap. I guess you would call her handicap, right?
Mm-hmm.
She's handicapped, at least in our gravity. And so it's about this handicapped woman kind of dealing with the emotional challenge of, trying to adjust with everybody else or staying true to herself. I think that's really the ultimate base of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
But there were a lot of things that were popped out in the episode to me. One was that cheap wheelchair that started off.
I know.
I was like,
that's how it opens, right? That's how it opens up. There's Bashir, and Bashir's just riding on it like it's a freaking toy. He's like, oh, this isn't so bad. Look at this. Look at me. I'm a low gravity person. Check it out.
And I was just like, this can't be the way a wheelchair is, 400 years from now or so. It just looks so low tech and so primitive. It literally would look like it was just carried out of, the wheelchair store, and they put a joystick on it.
This was 1993, and they were using like 1991 technology for this thing.
Right. Yeah. I was like, it's funny how wheelchair hasn't really made it that far over the centuries. So that was one thing that just popped out to me. I mean, it literally even had the leg kick stands, where you kick down the legs.
Especially considering that Bashir apparently spent all day making it even more high tech, and that's the best he could come up with. And those little leg kicks, the way they made it seem more sci-fi is they added that little sound effect, the little when it opens up. So suddenly, now it's sci-fi.
It was a wheelchair with a flip phone attached to it as a joystick. It was very funny and so primitively low tech that it was hilarious. And then they kind of trolled themselves when they made it all about wheelchair accessibility on the station, which is like something that we never really think about in the world of Star Trek, right? Because you kind of expect that they could heal almost anything, right? So you don't really expect to see a person without, I guess they have prosthetics advanced to the maximum level and all kinds of other advancements in science and medical research. So you would think that everybody could be healed or they just die, right? There's no gray zone, right?
Supposedly, yeah, but it really, technology works really as far as their plot needs. Like, somebody broke their spine. Well, give them 20 minutes in the medical chamber, regeneration thing, and they'll be all fine. Unless you want a plot in which it permanently paralyzes them, then suddenly, what can we do? It's between the second and third vertebrae. Sorry,
What I thought was interesting to me is that as many people that I have met along the way doing conventions and of that nature, just fans in general, I've never heard this episode brought up. And I've met a lot of people in wheelchairs, from various different reasons. And I've never heard them say, I like that episode Melora made, it gave me some inspiration or made me rethink my injuries or, I never heard that brought up.
That's a good point. Well, I'll be honest. I don't listen to Star Trek fans asking questions because they're always like 7-part questions, and their questions don't tend to be questions. They go, "Yes, I have a question. When I was 7 years old, I watched Star Trek and I enjoyed it very much." And my friends, and you're like, "Is there a question in there?" But no, of course I'm kidding. But
No,
most
that's the setup to the question.
yeah.
Usually, the
But no,
setup is longer than the actual question.
I don't remember people asking that question or a question about that episode. No, but I did have the same thought that like this was a very specifically the episode for to bring up the issue of people that are physically challenged or handicapped or disabled in some way. This was kind of an episode for them, because they tackle blindness, they tackle all kinds of different things, and this was a physical handicap. And from the very beginning, I did think, I bet Aron would have had a lot to say about this episode. I bet Aron would have liked this episode a lot, not because it was that well written or that well executed. I think that's why it's not necessarily a favorite. But the idea was great because, as we discussed with Leia a couple weeks ago in a previous Captain Nog Forever thing, there's the internal disorders that you can't see, so you don't know how to work around people. But then there's also the exterior things that you can see, and then we act differently around those people, or we fall all over themselves saying, "Oh, here, let me get that water for you. Let me do this." And they're like, "I can get it. I'm fine," And I thought that Aron would have really a lot to say about that because he did have some impediments, whether it was because he was short or it was his kidney or something. I'm sure all of his life he had people kind of trying to overcompensate a little bit. And Aron was very much like Melora in that, don't you dare even treat me slightly differently. Don't you even try it or I will snap at you.
Absolutely no, and that's the same thing that I was reminded of when I watched the episode. It brought me back to, kind of looking at it through Aron's eyes. That reminded me of Aron, the moments in which he refused help
Yeah.
and didn't want to be looked at as handicapped or viewed as in impaired in any type of way. And that just harkens back to how I remember Aron being, not wanting to feel any kind of, special treatment based on any kind of things that you saw wrong with him. He wanted to be laid out flat, treated equally. Don't baby me. I don't need it. I don't need help. I don't need, assistance for some things. And I think that in itself is one of the main, you know, mentalities that you kind of admire about people that are strong, um, despite whatever their shortcomings are,
Yeah.
and overcome those things.
Yeah. And a lot of times, their impediment or their injury or their illness is kind of makes them stronger because they realize, hey, I have to be stronger or this thing is going to rule my life. And it does take a very special person to make that kind of realization and overcome. Because I know me, man, if I have a sprained ankle, I'd be like, can you get the water out of the fridge? I would, but I'm just so, I can't, and this itch in my
Right.
back, you know what I mean? But whereas people like Aron or like this character Melora, they're like, even if it takes me 20 minutes, I will go to the fridge and I'll get my own damn water.
Yeah, and you see that time and time again. You see veterans who've lost their limbs that are continuing to do activities that you would think are outside of their realm of possibility, whether it's mountain climbing or running marathons, competing in Ironman events. They try to challenge themselves in different ways, and they don't yet let the disabilities kind of inhibit them from being a participant. So I think we see examples of this all the time, right?
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
but another thing that stood out to me in the episode was basically how horny Dr. Bashir has
I
been
was
throughout.
I was like, when is the appropriate time for me to bring this up? Because I don't want to like jump in. We're having this heartfelt discussion about what an incredible human Aron was, and what an inspiration he was. And I'm like, when can I just jump in and be like,
it's the elephant in the room? It just
that's exactly what it is. The elephant in the room. Bashir is a freaking horn dog. He's a
horn dog.
Every single line they gave him sounded like an innuendo. You know what I mean? Or a euphemism.
Yeah, it was just like, this guy doesn't quit, man. Every girl he sees, he's just like, he's got a fire at. And I'm like, even the handicapped girl is like, he's like, yeah, so what are you doing later? And I'm like, come on, Bashir. He really need, I'm fine. I'm glad he got some. He got it memorialized. He had, he might have the first zero gravity sex scene that I think I can remember of.
Man.
Unless you can tell me of an earlier piece of film that has a zero gravity sex scene.
I can't remember one offhand, but I did feel like after every line that Bashir said, I wanted to take a shower. Like the first, they're alone for 4 seconds, and he says, "Oh, is this your husband, boyfriend?" Like first thing, like. She hasn't even fully walked into her own quarters, and he's already sniffing her panties in her drawers. He's already like looming around and trying to get into everything.
Yeah, it was a little bit over the top, and it was indicative of how they've set him up to be throughout this, this so far in the show, which is basically like, he's shooting at everything moving. But it was terrible to watch. It was hard to watch him. It was hard to watch him really just like throw himself all over this girl.
He was a predator.
and then even more so, it was awkward to see her and Dax now have these interchanges because he's been firing so hard at Dax this whole time, right? So just to add another element of kind of weirdness to it. I don't know. I just thought, wow, this guy, he doesn't stop. He must not have any extra funds for the Hollow Suite.
Wow. Yeah.
Get yourself in the Hollow Suite, man, and get it over with. That's hilarious.
Yeah, and then have Rom do a mop-up duty and whatever. But
yeah, so those were the things that stood out to me the most.
It's true. Like he's like, oh, Dax, wait a second. Here's another lady with a heartbeat. I'm all set. But I did write down a few lines of his that really got me.
Okay.
Like when
please share.
Like when she says something about anti-gravity and he goes, I'm no longer your doctor, like implying, hey, I'm right. Here, not here as your doctor. And she's probably thinking, well, what the fuck are you here for? I didn't invite. Yeah, you're my doctor. I just met you 2 minutes ago.
I just met you literally 2 minutes ago.
But then she says something very minor. I don't even remember what it was. And he goes, was that an attack? You do it with such charm. And then,
I like your Bashir is pretty spot on.
I want to beat myself up for it. But then the other one was, she says another very minor thing and he goes, ooh, red alert. And that one killed me. He goes, ooh, red alert.
Man, you're spot on with it. I mean, I can't get any better than that. That's it. Oh man, so yeah, that it was brutal having to watch him try to talk his way into her heart, and then oh god, I mean, there's so many. There were actually a lot of things in this episode. If you really want to break it down, there were a lot of things. The date where they go and they meet the Klingon, the Klingon. What is he? The restaurant owner or?
Yeah, you know what? That guy stole the show at the end with his serenade.
Yes.
Like, that was really good. It wasn't just like, and I was watching, I was like, is that someone else's voice, ADR? And I'm like, no, that's him. Like, he was a good singer. He sang in Klingon. He was flinging his little thing, but not doing actually any note, any
violin thing. not that
Yeah.
thing.
In
But
in
yeah,
Klingon in Klingon they call it a violent, but whatever.
So yeah, he did steal the scene. I mean, first of all, the guy himself was kind of larger than life, so he fills up the screen, and just his presence alone. But I don't know anybody who's grabbing food with their hands and throwing it on the plate. You would think that restaurant's not going to be in business too long.
The same hands he's handling your money with, and
yeah, exactly. So that didn't look appetizing at all. Then they were eating gummy worms, which was another hilarious thing.
Yeah, or rice noodles.
Rice noodles and the gummy worms. But that guy actually did steal the scene. Like when his scenes were on, he was entertaining. I was thoroughly entertained by watching him do his Klingon.
And you know what? I feel like we've seen him in multiple episodes. That can't be the only one, because I remember him other times too. I'm going to look him up right now, but I really liked him a lot. I thought he was great.
Yeah. I guess they don't worry about who's cleaning up messes, because when he picked up that food and threw it over his shoulder and went to get something else, I'm thinking, who's cleaning that mess up? I don't know why I think about these things, but I'm always worried about the pickup.
Oh, shoot. His name is Ron Taylor, and he actually passed away at age 49 in 2002.
Oh, wow.
That's horrible.
Yeah.
Let me see what other episodes he did. Only 2 episodes. The next one is Playing God in season 3.
Okay.
So 2 episodes.
And he's a Klingon. He's a Klingon in that episode.
He plays the same character, the Klingon chef. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Speaking of passing away, somebody just passed away too. One of the original Star Trek writers.
Yeah.
Fontana, I think her name.
Yeah, DC Fontana. She was one of the original series. She was quite a writer. She was quite a trailblazer. I think she was 80 when she passed away. Really, really an important figure for a lot of reasons. I believe she even helped write The Cage, right? I think I didn't read I didn't read the thing that they sent out to everybody, because I already knew who she was. Didn't really need to read up on.
Now, from what I heard, that she essentially was accredited for creating the Spock character, if I'm not mistaken.
Right?
So
that's awesome.
Yeah. So thank you, DC Fontana, for your contributions to the world.
And it also needs to be said that 50 years ago there weren't a ton of female writers in Hollywood, making her a very important figure, not just for what she did for Star Trek, not just for working
Science
with
fiction,
Roddenberry and being such a great writer and having such a creative mind, and turning everything to gold that she touched, but the fact that she did all that as a lady in the 60s,
absolutely,
that stated.
Absolutely. And now, correct me if I'm wrong, but I also heard that she has something to do with the DC comic books. Is that accurate, or is that just
that I hadn't heard? I mean, DC Fontana in DC comic books. Yeah. Let me take a quick search of that.
Yeah. So like you said, that's pretty trailblazing of her, as a woman in a business where there's not too many women represented, and at the time that she started, she really was a pioneer, and will always be remembered.
Yeah, I'm not seeing anything for
the DC comic connection.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean that there isn't one, because right now all I'm seeing when I Google is about her passing. So it might be maybe
deep in the story, right?
Exactly. Mm-hmm. So if anybody knows anything about that, let us know, because that would be pretty awesome. The lady named DC Fontana was also writing for DC Comics. Now we just need to get a writer named Marvel.
Yeah.
Thanks for laughing at that one.
Yeah, I'll give you one. I'll give you one. I'll give you one. But yeah, there was Well, we didn't even talk about Quark, and we haven't even gotten into that yet.
Yeah, well, let's do it. Let's kind of hit this systematically. Mainly, I did want to mention Aron and what he meant as a person that was similar to Melora and went through some of the same trials that Melora did, and a very similar personality, that fighter, that warrior personality. And I did want to, give a special shout out to the Klingon chef. And it's great that you brought up DC Fontana. So now, yeah, let's kind of knock this out bit by bit and make sure everything gets mentioned. The first thing was that they did explain why it wasn't compatible or ready for people that have physical disabilities. It's because it's Cardassian made, and Cardassians don't care about that, I guess. They're kind of like, tough tamales, kid, You're gonna,
yeah.
I don't know how they deal with it. I don't know.
Well, they just execute anybody who can't do it. That's it.
It's like, sorry, bud.
Sorry, buddy, you're no longer useful.
But at least they explained it. They like to, they gave a lot of exposition in that opening scene, a lot of it with Bashir and Dax.
One thing I wanted to ask you about, because I know you know more than I do about it, but is this not, is this the second time we're seeing a wheelchair in a Star Trek show? Is the original wheelchair the one that is accredited to Pike?
And yeah, I hadn't even thought of Pike, but you're right. He was like in a dune buggy practically.
Right. Which I thought we would see a better. I thought Pike's wheelchair was better than her wheelchair, by the
way. Yeah. His is like a shuttlecraft with his head sticking out. Yeah, a shuttlecraft that's like he grew too big for,
Yeah.
Yeah, it could be. I'm trying to think of Next Generation. I mean, I know we see one fairly regularly now on Discovery. But as we know, that's a much more recent series. I don't recall seeing anything in Next Generation with the wheelchair. For all you awesome Star Trek nerds out there that are more knowledgeable than we are, let us know if there's anything in Next Generation with a wheelchair, because I can't think of one.
The only thing I can think of is the Pike's hovercraft wheelchair. And so this to me is like the second time we've seen one. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you may be right. Also, I do want to get into the B plot in just a second. We're going to take our break, and then we'll get back with all the goodies in this episode called Melora in just a second on the Seventh Rule.